Hello, my name's Dr. Eric Grigg and welcome to this little talk on the weaponry of the Home Guard. I've been researching for a couple of years the Lincolnshire Home Guard. Now the Home Guard were formed in World War II, formed in 1940 with a threat of German invasion hanging over Britain, and were disbanded in 1944 when it was quite clear that the Germans weren't actually going to invade. Now the myth is with the Home Guard, everyone remembers the sitcom Dad's Army, that they're a bit of a joke, but I want to look at the kind of weapons that they used and hopefully give you an insight and a more accurate and rounded view of the weaponry of the Home Guard. Now we tend to think of the Home Guard in terms of improvised weapons, in terms of them having, parading with broom handles and with carving knives tied to the end, and museums being raided for old muskets, and people wandering around with shotguns and old service revolvers being dug out of the back of drawers. And there certainly was at the beginning people wandering around guarding against German paratroopers with their shotguns, and there's a lot of Americans that donated their firearms to Britain, and there does seem to be a lot of firearms in private hands in America. During the course of the Home Guard, at one point, with a shortage of weapons, they were issued with something called the Croft Pike, which was a pole with a metal spike on the end, and it was designed to be able to, like putting a bayonet on the end of the rifle, you could stab the enemy. A lot of the Home Guard thought, I'd rather have a rifle with a bayonet on so I can actually fire it than something that looks like it's come out of medieval times. Petrol bombs. Very early on, the local defence volunteers, as the Home Guard were originally known, made lots of petrol bombs, lot of Molotov cocktails, where you mix petrol and tar and other bits and bobs in a bottle, and you put a wick on it and throw it at the enemy, or making explosives in cocoa tins. And occasionally you read about injuries as these things go off, and you get these wacky ideas and well, not wacky but creative as well ideas in some of the Home Guard training manuals, like getting plates and half bury them in fields, so the Germans go, the place has been mined. So if the Germans go across it and they go, oh, it's not a minefield, next time they meet a real minefield, they'll go, it's plates again, and then go across it and blow up. And there's other stuff in their manuals about getting canvases and throwing them over tanks, or using crowbars to open up tanks. And it does sound very amateurish, and it does sound very Dad's Army, but it is something that was only there usually in the very, very beginnings of the Home Guard. Very soon, the Home Guard did get armed with actual weapons. Formed in May, by July, a third of them had a rifle. By the end of 1940, fully armed. There's often not one rifle for every member of the platoon, but remember, this is a part-time organisation. So if the Germans did invade, it'd take time for you to get your unit together, and practically everyone that would initially turn up the first hour or two at the village hall where they been given out a rifle would have had a rifle. They're originally given Lee Enfields, but these are recalled for the regulars, and they're given M1917s, which are often called Springfields. These come over surplus from Canada and America, and they often use a slightly smaller ammunition. So red bands are painted on the rifles to remind the troops not to put the wrong ammunition in it. And it took a lot of cleaning of these things. As you go through the accounts of the Home Guard, and they talk about all the grease that these things have been stored in, mass-produced just after World War One. They're initially given machine guns as well, initially given Thompsons, but these are soon replaced with Sten guns. Everyone thinks of Sten guns, oh, they're mass-produced, oh, this is Britain serious about winning the war, they cost a £5 as opposed to £50 for a Thompson. But the early Sten guns were very dangerous things, probably not so dangerous to the enemy as you would like. The Mark 1 didn't have a safety catch. You drop it on the floor and the whole thing, the whole magazine would discharge. Catches could tend to take their fingers off. When you read if you read what the range of a Sten gun is, take that with a pinch of salt. You read online people saying, oh, you know, a Sten gun could fire this hundreds of yards or whatever, and you go, no, that's how far a bullet would go after it left a Sten gun. The accuracy was appalling on these things, but mass produced and meant the Home Guard had a machine gun to use at short range against, you know, if they got a block of enemy troops to shoot at. Light machine gun, Browning automatic rifles. These are often fired as single shot and have a heck of a range and a heck of a kick on it. But they also got Lewis guns, and the Home Guard on the southeast coast, where the Germans were most likely to invade, issued with Bren guns, heavy machine guns, Vickers, Brownings. So by October 1940, the Home Guard nationally, you know, 2/3 of a million rifles, loads of shotguns, loads of machine guns. By January 1943, they had 900,000 rifles, Sten guns, Lewis guns, Vickers light machine guns. They're a heavily armed full body of men within, you know, 6 months of them being formed. Grenades. Now, grenades are very useful for clearing out enemy bunkers and enemy in, you know, occupying buildings. They had a wide variety. The Mills bomb, which looks like a pineapple. There's the thermos grenade, or the number 73 that you could use to blow the tracks of a tank off. Sticky bombs. These had a tendency to stick to the person throwing them, but you got them and you threw them at an enemy tank and they stuck to the tank, so the force would, the explosion would be straight into the armour of the enemy vehicle. Loads of others. The 68AT, they had grenade launching rifles they could fire these from, and a 68AT that lands on the armour of early German tanks or any armoured car, jeep, truck would cause a heck of a lot of damage. And the number 76, these are in glass bottles. They often have to be very carefully stored, and you throw one of these and it causes a chemical fire that will just burn for about a quarter of an hour. And occasionally I've read in books, people go, well, what's the point of, you know, setting a tank on fire? Well, if the tank's covered in burning liquid, the people inside the tank can't see out. The people inside the tank can't see you go up and put your number 73 onto the tracks and blow the tracks off the tank. So these are all rather useful bits of kits, some of which they could fire quite a distance. They had things called sub-artillery, and because it's sub-artillery, people think, oh, it's not that useful, but they're dangerous bits of kits. The Blacker bombards, or spigot mortars. These are mortars that are set on a concrete base, and you could fire these and then drop an anti-tank grenade on top of any sort of vehicle. And the Home Guard would have ambush points in their local area where they knew where they could fire, what angle they could fire, and where they would hit any enemy vehicles. North over projectors, these could fire grenades at a heck of a distance. There's the Smith gun, which is basically it's like a steel tube, a bit like the North over projector, but this one, there was two sort of drum wheels, one with ammunition on and one with a gun on, and you'd turn the thing sideways and you could fire the gun from it, and the one of the wheels becomes the base and you can spin it around. Really useful. The RAF regiment used it to protect airfields. So the idea that it's a joke piece of kit, no, these are serious bits of kit that can fire quite damaging projectiles quite a distance. So North over projector, 50 to 60 yards, bigger, 100 yards, 400 yards with an anti-personnel grenade in it, a Smith gun, 100 yards. So as the Germans did attack, as their armour column or their vehicles got nearer, you could fire these things at some distance at them. These are some posters that were given to the Lincoln Home Guard, thanks to Neil Battle for these. It shows the sort of the emplacements they used to build for the spigot mortars, with a little trench round and a sort of big giant concrete thimble with a metal plug at the top where you'd sit your spigot mortar on, and the Home Guard were constantly being trained and retrained and given training manuals and lectures and stuff to keep them up to date with how to fire these weapons, how to take them apart, how to maintain them, so you knew when you fired them they would work. And I was going through records in Lincolnshire, the dates that each unit got equipment, and they were like, you know, rifles within a couple of weeks of the Home Guard or local defence volunteers, as they were then, being formed. Browning automatic rifles, Browning heavy machine guns, Lewis machine guns, all by the sort of winter of 1940, and that's within, you know, within the first year of them being formed. So within the first year of them being formed, lots of them had rifles, lots of them had machine guns and ability to fire. And the list of grenades and the numbers of grenades, you look at it and you get, if someone accidentally put a naught on the end of that, they've got an incredible amount of firepower and equipment, down to small village platoons. In 1942 onwards, threat of invasion has declined, but as the British Army get better weaponry, everything was passed down to the Home Guard. So they start getting, you know, 6-pounders, 18-pounders, 13-pounders, 4.5 each howitzers. Often with a gun, or a piece of ordnance like this, when there's a better one, the British Army declare the old one obsolete. And people have got confused with this in the past and thought that it meant that the Home Guard were using obsolete weapons, like weapons that wouldn't work or weapons that were ineffective. It's just a technical term, meaning there's a better one there. You know, if you have 4.5-inch howitzers there's a better version coming along. The ones that given to the Home Guard are still going to do a heck of a lot of damage and still are viable pieces of weaponry. Stuff taken off French battleships or reserve stocks of American weapons. The Boys anti-tank rifle, which is dismissed, people go, well, it's not going to go through a Tiger tank or anything. Well, no, but it's going to go through an armoured car and it's going to go through a truck. And you get close enough, it's going to take off the tracks of lots of German tracked vehicles. And I've got references in Lincolnshire to people using these and firing these, so they knew. So not only they had them, they were practiced with them, and they knew what to do with them. So these things, officially obsolete, very effective at taking out enemy armour. This is some couple of pillboxes near Spalding in Lincolnshire, where the Home Guard manned them. At points there's constant discussions with the Home Guard whether there should be a static force or whether there should be a mobile force and go and attack them. But they had fortified positions. They knew their local areas, and they had plans for defending all their areas, and they'd practiced with these weaponry, so they knew as the Germans come down that road they could fire this and drop an anti-tank grenade onto a vehicle as it passed that point. Still think the Home Guard are a little bit of a joke. The D Company, the 10th Lindsay, this is basically the Skegness Home Guard, get trained up and man the batteries of the 437 battery of the 545 Coastal Regiment of Royal Artillery. These are some gun emplacements near Freeston, and so they're trusted to man quite heavy guns along the coast. This is quite a burden on the local Home Guard unit, is having to sort out rotors and so forth. So my research looking at the Lincolnshire Home Guard has made me realise how well-armed, well-trained, serious force they are. Nationally, academics and writers on this subject have been coming to this conclusion as well. You know, from '95 with Simon Mackenzie's book, which dismissed the Home Guard as a bit of a joke. gradually writers are going, hang on a minute, they're quite an effective force. The early days might be a bit of a joke, but gradually people are realising how well armed they are. Dale Clark's, if you want to read more, his book, Britain's Final Defence, some of the ideas I'm saying are, I'm indebted to Dale Clark's work, where he's looked at the weaponry and how effective the weaponry are. So if you want a good up-to-date book on the Home Guard, Atkins or Clark or Storia, great places to start to talk about how effective they are and how they're not really like Dad's Army. Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed this. I've done, as I say, I've done a bit of research. I've put on little displays occasionally at the university I work at, Bishop Crossest University in Lincoln, and various other places. And I will carry on researching the Home Guard, and hope I've slightly changed your mind a bit about them and the how effective they might have been and luckily it never happened if the Germans had invaded. Have a good day. Thank you very much.